Okay, this one I'm excited for. We've got my buddy Blake, VP of marketing at Carro. Long time coming, like most of these are, but Blake and I are actually pretty good friends now. So it's always cool to record with buddies. I think it's kind of an interesting friendship story because we were friends, then we were enemies, and now we're friends again. So it's good to be on the brighter side with you, my man. Thanks so much for joining, and always great to see you.
Pleasure to be here. Yeah, thanks so much. And I'm glad we're no longer frenemies. We're on friendlier ground here that we're here. But no, it was a pleasure to be on. Big fan of the pod. And yeah, we've got history, man. We go back to attentive, the three of us, I think, and when we all met. So yeah, awesome to be here. I'm really excited to chat with you guys today.
Yes, I definitely want to dive into the journey, and the attentive days for you seem like like a millennium ago for
Totally.
me. So I imagine that it feels even longer ago for you. We will definitely get into all of that. We also have Mariah here today. Hey,
Hi
Mariah.
everyone. I just waved as if people could see me,
Yeah.
but you know what, you waved first, so
The
you tricked me
virtual
into
wave.
it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Great to
Awesome.
be on here.
So we Blake, I'm sure that you've listened before, hopefully. But one thing we like to do is we always like to start off with one or two things you're excited about in your personal life before we dive into the biz talk.
I was stoked when I saw this question. I was reading through. I was like, man, how do I find one or two? I think number one, I'm really stoked on right now. So, turning 29 in December, I ran 28 miles for my 28th last year.
Oh,
Mhm.
Told myself I would never do it again. And the other day, I'm like, man, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go for 29. So, mentally now getting myself there, but also starting to train a little bit more for it. So, shout out to Philip Jackson, Future Commerce. When he turned 42, I think it was last year, the year before. I was like, if Philip can do it, like I have no excuse not to run, 28 miles for my 28th. So 29, we'll see. I'm really stoked on that. And then I'm also really excited for the NFL season to start here. I'm a big Packers fan. It's a big year for us, minus Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see what happens if we have a terrible season or not. Can't jump ship on the Packers.
okay. Lots of questions. One, personally, I've only ever run 15 or 16. I can't remember. But after I did that, I kind of felt like I might die. How and definitely want to work up to a marathon someday. It's bonkers to me that anybody would do that, let alone go beyond it. 28, how did that feel? Was that the longest you've ever done? And what do you think inspired you to decide after you said you would never do it again
To
to
do it
push
again.
it 1 mile further this year?
Yeah, I think a bit of insanity, but I think a little bit of just like I've always like told myself like do things you feel really uncomfortable. Like you set it out in the universe and you have to just do it. So like when I set the 28, I was like, okay, like I don't know how we'll figure this out. The most I had ran before that I think was 14.
Wow.
But San Diego is a great running city. It's really flat here, so it's a little bit more forgiving, I think, on like the long distance. But when you get out to get to like mile 16 to 25, you're like, I'm gonna die. This sucks. I don't want to be here. Like maybe like I was just at it was the goal I wanted to hit. So I think pushing through, but also running early, running when it's cold, all the things like you can to just save yourself. But I mean, I'm humbled by people who run ultra marathons. So 28 is like nothing for like the bigger picture, I know. But I think I realized like when I got done with it, I didn't feel well, and I was like, okay, maybe like I'll stop. This isn't like for this. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'll bike. 29 for my 29th, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just sort of to realize I wanted to keep it going. So we'll see how many birthdays I can go. Maybe when I get into my 40s, I won't be saying the same thing here. But yeah, we'll see.
That's awesome, man. Also, I caught a little nugget in there of you saying like 28 is nothing to the bigger picture, meaning like ultra marathon. And it's just, a testament to who you are, I think. And
Yeah,
like,
what a comparison. Yeah.
you went from 14 to 28. You're probably like, there's no way I can do 28. You did 28, and then you're like, that's nothing, that's
it's
nothing to 50.
it's it doesn't hold a flame to it for sure. I think it was funny. I told the company I was at the time, I was like, hey, I'm taking a day off, and they were like, oh, like you probably can like personal day or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm just kind of running some miles for my birthday. And when I told everyone, they were like, wow, like you're insane to do that on a day off. So I don't know. I've always embraced it. But I will say, I think anyone can do a marathon. I think it's just, you got to like find it within you to stay calm. I think that's like the thing I've found, like, you got to find your happy place and just stay there. But runner's high is very real for me. So shout out to Greg Bauman, partnerships legend. He got me into running, a couple of years back.
Man, that's a good reminder. I got to check in on Greg. It's been a while. Also,
While you're making a note to check in, I have one of my college coaches did a similar thing, but would row like on the rowing machine, the indoor rowing machine, and 52 did a 52K, which is like an hour and a like 40 minutes, maybe hour and a half of like erging. And I, ever since I saw that, I was like, no, I know I will not be that person, but maybe for running, that would be, yeah, that would be something else. But
so it was
major
an hour
kudos.
and a half of rowing.
That's
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah. Which, because like the most we would do would be like, that's like a test piece is like a 40K or sorry, a 10K, which is like 40 minutes. So yeah, I can't even imagine. Yeah. The
That's
timing of it all.
immense back strength right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. But when you were saying that, I was like, oh my God, I know someone who, yeah.
Unbelievable. Happy early birthday, Blake, and
Thank
good
you.
luck on the run. Obviously, I expect to see the Instagram feed blow up when you
All for the social. That's all we do these days. It's all about the social. That's
you
all.
and me
If it
both.
didn't, you didn't post it, it didn't happen.
What's the Packers outlook like without Aaron? I don't know
Yeah.
about their squad now.
Was listening to a pod yesterday. I think the oldest player on the team is like 31 or 32. Like, they're a very young team. Jordan Love, their quarterback, big fan of when they drafted him. Like, kind of everyone wasn't really happy about it, taking a QB in the first round, when you've got the GOAT Aaron Rodgers still on the team. But I think it's paid off. We'll see. Tough division, tough, I think this tough kind of conference in general, even too, where they're at. So we'll see. I mean, maybe we're looking at a 4-12 season, and I'll cry myself inside to sleep a little bit. But you got to stay faithful to your team, and we'll hope for the best, I guess.
We can always use more Colts supporters. So if that ends up happening, just jump ship. It's all good. That's good though. Yeah. It's interesting how that all played out with him and Jordan Love. We'll see. Colts are kind of in a similar position, I think.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been as much without our team trash talking Jonathan Taylor, our best player, and him then requesting a trade. But such is the NFL. So what can you do?
Yeah, well, I'm rooting for the Colts. They're a good AFC team. Always a fallback for me. I still think about like the Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison days for me. Those were like the glory days of the Colts, I feel like, in a lot of ways. So, good team.
Absolutely.
Indy's a great sports city nonetheless too.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's get into it. So we also like to start to just set the stage before we get into Carro, and we'll tease a little Black Friday, Cyber Monday stuff a little later. But tell us about your career to date and all the way leading up to joining the Carro team.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I graduated from San Diego State 2017. I was a commercial real estate major. I didn't think I was going to go into e-commerce. Then I started to get more involved in like the internship side of it and realized I wasn't that extroverted and like wasn't really like a cold caller and doing all those things. So quickly decided that like that wasn't for me. And so I actually just was like, I graduated without a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I started to just kind of consult for a person that I was interning with. He had a painting business and he needed someone to do digital marketing. I was like, well, I can do this. Like, sure, I'm creative. That sounds cool. Did SEO, started doing all the AdWords, doing like all the, on-site stuff, and then found my way from there into e-commerce. So I was like, well, this is interesting. Like I've kind of already been learning about this. And so I jumped into more of like a consulting kind of role, working with some local, brands in the San Diego area, Southern California, and then found my way to an agency where I kind of have a little more support around me. I was doing retention marketing at the time. Didn't really know what I was doing at all. I kind of understood digital marketing, but very much a fake it till you make it mentality. And I learned an immense amount working on the agency side, just like getting to work with paid media, getting to work with customer experience, working across brands. It was just the coolest thing to be in that Shopify space and that time, like 2017 to like 2020-ish, call it. And was there for a little while, doing email, SMS marketing, all that stuff. Drove about 13 million in 2 years over email and SMS, which was really cool and fun to be a part of, but felt like I kind of plateaued. I was starting to grow a lot on the retention marketing side. There wasn't this awesome community that there is now, I think, in like Twitter and like LinkedIn and all this stuff that was there at the time now, but at the time it really wasn't. But I started to get really active on LinkedIn during this time, talking about like SMS, realizing that no one was talking about SMS that much. And Attentive took notice, and I got featured in a couple case studies, did some kind of, kind of customer kind of like marketing stuff with them, and started even giving them like product feedback. There was another company at the time called Tone.
Really quick, was that like while you were working on brands and setting up their SMS programs?
Yeah. So I wasn't actually, I was just a power user of Attentive. I think they were like, who's this guy driving crazy ROI in these campaigns? Like, we got to talk to him. And so it was just a cool thing. I was passionate about SMS, which is like, I think like a theme I always like tell people I mentor is like, if you're passionate about something and you can talk well about it, like that will take you very far. And so I started to just kind of get more active in that. Tone was another SMS company that I was giving a lot of product feedback to. And as I started to give more and more product feedback, I realized I was like, a lot of these SaaS companies don't have a marketer who's done this before, who's been in that seat, understands how to talk the language, but also to like think about ways the product could grow and evolve. So I gave so much product feedback to Tone that they were just like, hey, we want you to come join us. You can do growth marketing. We don't really know what that means for us, but we'll make a seat on the bus and we'll see what happens.
How big was Tone at the time?
Yeah, very small, very, very small. Not a lot of money or runway left at the time. I think T-Von will be fine with me saying that now. But they were just like, it was a great product. I think we were probably about 17 people, including engineers. Go to market was super small, but great team. Honestly, like the best experience I could have had at that time. We got acquired like 3 months after I joined by Attentive. And they didn't tell me that in the interview process. I thought PostScript was going to buy us or something was going to happen. Attentive buys us. And then I'm at this weird kind of crossroads of like, where do I go? I've got this taste of SaaS. I like it, but do I go back to the brand side? I kind of sat in purgatory at Attentive for like a month. They didn't know what to do with us at the time, I think, the Tone team. But I had a very chance encounter with Allison Kelly, the VP partnerships at Attentive at the time. And I didn't want to go. She was like, hey, I'm in San Diego. Like, you should meet up. T-Von was telling me to go. And this is another like kind of thing I always say is like, do things that make you uncomfortable. Go take the risk. Like, like you have nothing to lose. So I go meet Allison.
Why didn't you want to go? Just out of curiosity.
I'm so antisocial. I feel like I'm so like, I just wanted to stay home and kind of like, but I think I grew a lot during this time, and I've actually become, I think, more extroverted in a way through a lot of these kind of things I pushed myself to do.
I was going to say, like, I don't get that from you at all. And
yeah, same. I'd agree. I feel like I know you very much in a social public setting, but that's proving your point in that you're putting yourself out there to do those things in the first place.
Yeah, no, there's no better way to get reps than just put yourself out there, I think. And so Allison and I hit it off. She was like, I want you to join the partnerships team. And we kind of crafted this role around partner community, which was getting to work across all of our agencies, our tech partners, and everything in between, but getting to draw on kind of my thought leadership, kind of my subject matter expertise on SMS, and getting to work across like partner marketing, the partner managers, but also to like more on the leadership level too. So it was a really great kind of opportunity for me to grow in a lot of different ways. So I stayed at Attentive for a while, and really got to, I think, learn a ton about partnerships, but I think getting to have that marketing mindset as well, it started to get me to think I really got this bug for marketing, and I wanted to kind of go down this marketing leadership role. And so was at Attentive for a while, got to work with, awesome partners like Malomo, and I'll do all those kind of fun things, but wanted a little bit more. So I joined a company called Wonderment. We were there for a little while. And I sort of kind of even in that opportunity realized, I was doing more enablement focused kind of things, but kind of owning marketing. And I wanted to actually kind of build a marketing team. So that kind of leads me to where I am now here at Carro. getting to take all that partnerships experience, all that marketing experience, but also kind of all the early days of kind of where I was at, and thinking about just like, I think the Shopify ecosystem is changing a lot, and getting to have a little bit more of like a unconventional path here is, I think, serving me pretty well, and kind of how I think and kind of engage across different go-to-market kind of strategies and all that stuff. So long-winded way of saying very unconventional path, but very much just like putting myself out there and seeing what sticks, honestly.
Yes, the commercial real estate thing I knew nothing about. That is wild.
I'm not commercial real estate material, I'll tell you that.
Wait, actually, no, I don't know what you studied. Now I'm just curious.
I studied entrepreneurship, actually.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
How about you?
Maybe I didn't know that. Neuroscience. Because
Oh,
I was
wow.
gonna say my major is so random, like with where I am right now too. So I was gonna see what yours was. But yeah.
We're learning a lot here about each other.
I know.
Happens every time the three of us get together, I think.
Yes. Yes.
I have a immediate question before we get into Carro. So I'm curious, you started basically consulting with brands, meaning you were doing a lot of D2C or B2C, whatever you want to say, marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're kind of in this position, and you have been in, Wonderment, Attentive, then Wonderment, now Carro, where you're doing direct, or you're doing B2B marketing. And so I'm curious how you think those two things overlap. Like, what did you take from the D2C side that you're now implementing on B2B that you think like more, especially like tech orgs, should be thinking about?
Totally. That's a good question. I think like there's so many parallels that, like, at the end of the day, like, you're just trying to connect with people, and sure, sales cycles are different. Sure, consideration, like all the things that fall are different. But at the end of the day, like, what I learned that was really cool about D2C was like, there's just this immediate, more intimate connection that you can make with a customer. And I think in B2B, like, we're so transactional. We're like, everything is like, just more drawn out processes, and like, it varies by org how you think about things. Like Attentive, our sales cycles were pretty long, but like getting to look at, just sort of like the approach that I always had was like, be customer centric, like kind of break down barriers and sort of be more human. I've always tried to think about the human aspect of it. And so like, even as I've come here to Carro, it's been like, I want to humanize Carro as much as we possibly can. So it's like, there is a deeper connection than just like this transactional nature of things. And like D2C, like, it's human. That element, a human element of D2C is like the brand story and the storytelling element of it. Like, I'm a brand marketer, honestly. I think it's taken me a long time to admit that, but I very much like to tell stories. And so I think like that storytelling aspect has always been something I've gravitated towards and brought to the conversation. And definitely, I think there's a lot more close parallels than kind of initially you might see between D2C and B2B, for example.
Yeah, that's a great point. I feel like taking some of the humanistic elements of the brand side of D2C makes a lot of sense for B2B brands. And I would probably toot our own horn at Malomo a little bit on that. Like, I think we do a pretty good job of keeping things like light and human, and we very rarely take like a business tone, if ever, I think. And like,
I feel like since I've been writing,
right,
very rare.
Yeah,
I'm like, always trying to go for the puns, the emojis.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, I've always admired that about you guys, what you're doing at Malomo. And I think like it reminds me of a conversation I was just having with Mike Manheimer, CMO of Postscript, Chase Messeni. He's over at Heatmap now. And then we were talking more just about like the vibe check that you kind of have to focus on. Like, it's this unmeasurable metric. Chase said it way better than I'm about to say it, but I think like he was saying like a lot of companies don't pass the vibe check in terms of like just being personable and having a human element to their business. And that starts at like the leadership level, honestly. Like, if your CEO is someone who's like that, if your C-level is like that, it kind of trickles down the rest of the company. And I think the ones who pass that sort of like, you want to do business with people who you feel a connection to, I think that is kind of like, you look at the ones who are crushing it right now, and those are typically, I think, like what they're kind of doing. And you can't measure vibes in HubSpot, but you definitely can like find signals that do that. And I think that's also like the partnerships kind of side of it as well. Like partnerships is all about passing that vibe check. I sound like sounds like such a Gen Z right now saying these things. But yeah, that's kind of something I've always thought about is like you can definitely take that parallel, I think, too, and bring that from D2C to B2B too.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I've said like the partnership side of that for a long time, even in like the enterprise space, where a lot of times, like just like brands have, a plethora, especially in the Shopify ecosystem, of options of apps that do similar things. Um, Same thing for partnerships. Like all partners, we have the option to partner with a ton of different email platforms, a ton of different recommendations tools, a ton of different package protection tools. And like oftentimes, and it's the same reflection back to myself and to you, Blake, and also to Mariah in marketing, like who people partner with is a lot about who they enjoy working the most close with. Like
Spot on.
it really is. It's really about the human side and like staying top of mind. Do you have any like, I'm curious if you have any like hard examples of bringing that humanistic element into B2B? Because I feel like we understand what it is, right? Like at a high level, but like what's an actual example of doing that?
Yeah. I think a good example of it is content. I think like when you look at D2C, a lot of the content, whether you're talking about like sales funnels, you're talking about the retention content that you put out, like there's usually a human kind of aspect to it. Like there's the founder talking about like the story, or you've got like the authentic UGC kind of like hitting you and really hitting on that emotional layer. You bring it over to B2B, like I think what you can do is like really have this idea, and Dave Gerhardt talks a lot about this, but like founder brand. And like you can really, I don't think every B2B company is going to excel at founder brand if you don't have this like, founder who really wants to be external out there. But like I think you look at the ones who are leaning into this. I think Postscript is doing a fantastic job of this right now. You see like what Alex is doing, with the Fondue acquisition, like all that stuff. Like they're really putting the founder at the core of their content strategy, and it helps us to create like, oh, I know that person, oh, I've seen that person around, oh, like this content really feels like it's not just someone sitting writing with ChatGPT having some sort of like kind of like third person approach. Like I don't know, I just think we've kind of maybe lost sight as marketers in B2B of like, I think the way people engage with content and buy from content is not, yes, you want to hit your SEO, you want to do all these things, but like someone's going to stay and watch something and engage with it, like there needs to be a human element to it. So that's one of the closer parallels I think I would draw.
Fantastic.
I would also add to that, like zooming it out a bit, I think just through like interviewing different brands through the podcast and like lifestyle creators, I've seen a similar parallel where it's like just seeing the human in front of someone. That's now like those are celebrities now, right? Like in our day to day. And so the like want to see behind the scenes and like with social media and having so much accessibility into people's lives, I feel like that is mirroring what you're seeing in commerce, because people want to, now they're used to just seeing like entertainment. They can get so close to who they're like watching on social media or celebrities or whatever else. They get to see like behind the scenes, like additional content almost like on their profile. And so if you don't have that with the people that you're buying from, but you're used to it in your like daily scrolling or activities, there's like a little bit of a disconnect there. If that makes sense with that, like the parallel between the two.
Makes total sense. I think you're spot on, right? Honestly, like, I think showing up and being in the feed, like in a valuable value add sort of way. I always thought about this, like when I started at Attentive and I realized like no one was on social talking about like Attentive, and I was like, how is this, multi-billion-dollar company like not really investing in thought leadership? I was like, I'm gonna be that guy that shows up every single damn day in the LinkedIn feed, and I'm gonna have all the salespeople engaging with it, and then that's gonna amplify out to their prospects, and then suddenly like partners are seeing this, and you create this community and this ecosystem some ways, and like I just think that that's one of the valuable things of like having showing up in the feed a lot and having like something interesting to say. I think that's the key. Like having something interesting to say is like gonna be the great multiplier. But it's just something that I've always thought about. And like you see a lot of like the SaaS companies who are doing this really well are like starting to kind of like pick up on that. But it's been like a tenet of how I've always thought about like just not even like community, but really marketing at the end of the day. Like dark social was real. I think Chris Walker said it best. Like, but like it's definitely something that I think that a lot of people should be thinking more about.
Yes, 100%. Something we talk about all the time, actually.
Yeah. And try to tap into for sure.
Right. Okay. So let's get to Carro, and maybe because you said you think the Shopify ecosystem is changing a lot right now, I'd love for that to sort of lead us into what you're up to at Carro.
Yeah, totally. I think one thing that I've noticed a lot, I'll give you the boilerplate of kind of Carro in a second, but I think like this one thing I've noticed a lot is that you're seeing more and more this emphasis on like retention. But like what does retention like really mean is so like diverse to a lot of brands. And I think like you're hearing the themes over and over again. It's like, acquisition is more expensive. It's harder to get in front of your customers. It's harder to stay profitable. Like now there's this really big emphasis on like being profitable and like being a real business. Whereas like before it was okay to kind of like, make up that difference on the back end. But, I think consumer spending is changing. The way in which we look at even like timeline of like, payback on like your acquisition costs now, like that window is, I think, shrinking in a lot of ways, like where, go to market teams are saying, hey, like we need to be profitable on this customer in 90 days or whatever that is. So like AOV becomes more important, upsell becomes super important, but also like tapping into all the other kind of go to market kind of like functions you can do, like unlocking word of mouth, all the things kind of come from that. So, it was what drew me to Carro. I think in a lot of ways was like, it was a platform in a lot of ways that was just something that we're not really talking a lot about, which is collaborative commerce. And so at a high level, like what Carro does and what we do, we help brands to sell more together by really thinking about drop shipping in a whole different way, and approaching brand partnerships in a whole different way. So we connect Shopify merchants to a network of over 28,000 brands, giving them access to over 1 million products. So they can do things like grow their average order value, customer lifetime value, while also reducing acquisition costs. And they do all of this without having to handle all of the logistics of holding that physical inventory, having to create individual wholesale partnerships with brands. For them, it's just really a plug and play solution to be able to partner with other brands. So it's flexible for how you would use Carro. You can either opt in as a retailer, so you add curated products to your own store that maybe your customers are asking for. Maybe you want to test the waters and see if you add different products to your store, will people buy them, but you don't want to invest in that inventory. So that's a great way to kind of do that. Or you can be a supplier in the network and just work with other brands to gain exposure, from co-marketing with these other brands, but also to like, as you make sales, you're acquiring that customer for just giving a rev share on your product. So you can do either of those or both within Carro. We work with some really cool brands like Super 73, Blendjet, Suit Shop, who I think is a Maloma customer too, actually. But it again gives them the opportunity to explore a new sales channel and a new acquisition channel. But what really sets Carro apart, I mean, you see Shopify Collective kind of come out last in July. But we have taken a different approach to collaborative commerce in that we want it to be like a bridge between all e-commerce platforms. So we're not thinking just how can brands on Shopify work together, but how can a brand on Shopify and BigCommerce or Shopify and Salesforce Commerce Cloud work together. And so we are platform agnostic in that respect, which unlocks a lot of just opportunities for brand partnerships with that. But I think I'm always big on examples. I think it kind of helps to kind of draw the narrative a little bit closer. Blendjet's one of my favorite customers to talk about with Carro. So they're a hero product company. They sell blenders that are portable. They've totally invented this category, I think. But they realized that a lot of their customers were buying all the ingredients that go into Blendjet on other stores, going to Amazon, whatever that is. And so what Blendjet wanted to do was be able to sell all these products in a marketplace. But when you're selling perishable goods, that's a logistical nightmare. You got to create inventory kind of like, considerations there. And then also like kind of all the wholesale stuff that you have to do to figure out with these suppliers and minimums and all that stuff that kind of goes with it. But they also wanted to create recurring revenue through subscriptions. So kind of hitting on all these things at once. They built a marketplace through Carro, and they've been able to partner with brands like Tenzo, Oatly, Soylent, 310 Nutrition. And they sell all these products on what's called the BlendJet marketplace. And so as customers buy their BlendJets, they're going to add, hey, I want Oatly, I want the protein powder. All this stuff is going in. So that's growing the AOV for BlendJet, which is awesome. But on the other side too, for like the protein powder company, for Oatly, whatever it is, they're getting to market off the back of BlendJet. So BlendJet sends out an email blast, or someone goes to the BlendJet website. They're seeing these brands come up. And then when that sale's made, they're acquiring that customer. They get all that information back. So it's really like a new way for brands to think about like revenue growth, but also like customer acquisition at the end of the day. So it's a small example, I think, of how Carro works, but we're really focused on, like, I said at the onset, of like AOV is more important, LTV is more important, but CAC being really important too. We're really kind of seeing all these sort of things play out in real time. And it's something we're really passionate kind of about, helping more brands to explore with collaborative commerce.
Yes. The first thing is everybody who's listening should just check out the BlendJet site, because like right away you'll get a visual of exactly what Blake just talked about. It's pretty awesome. There's a lot of our customers on here, which just brings me back to, like, on the marketplace, I should say. I don't think BlendJet's a customer, but
they should be.
It's such a no-brainer use case to include the marketplace on their tracking page, right? Like it's a great spot to drive those additional, like, I guess it wouldn't be order value, but additional sales, and get exposure to the marketplace, so that over time they are driving AOV up with those repeat purchasers.
Totally.
We should definitely just figure that out as soon as possible, because it can't be that hard.
And I think what the cool things about the tracking page, with that, like we saw this, when I was doing some transactional stuff with Wonderment, but like I think it's interesting because even if it doesn't drive immediate revenue, you're introducing new products on that tracking page and taking advantage of that traffic. And I think like you're conditioning the behavior, like, hey, like, I just bought my, whatever, and now I'm getting, additional opportunities to see other products that I might like. I know for a lot of brands that are thinking, I don't have maybe products that upsell logically into this, or I'm struggling I want to upsell, but I don't want to go, spend an R&D or sourcing or doing all that. So it's not a replacement for your own products, but it's a great way to think about, like, just adding, complementary things that you're curating, what your customers are buying in their Amazon carts already in these other places. So the tracking page is a fantastic tool, I think, to be able to take advantage of at least introducing new products, whether you're doing collaborative commerce or, your own products even too.
Let's stick on BlendJet just to like clarify a few things. So one, for BlendJet, I imagine that they're kind of like getting a little kickback for sales made on the site. And then you mentioned AOV. Is the idea behind driving AOV up through additional products, not just the kickback, but also just like the psychology of, I'm going to spend, $80 on this site versus 50 or 60 because I'm adding these products? Like, is there anything there data wise that you've seen?
Yeah, totally. On this rev split side, it's totally on a partnership level. So like, for example, it might be the retailer takes, 60% and the supplier takes 40%, or, anything in between. It's all customizable, however it fits. And, again, like for both sides, like they're not having to have that product being held in inventory. They're literally just putting it on their site. It's a one-click add to their store, super easy. And then the supplier is just handling, the logistics, like as if it was a regular purchase. But for BlendJet, it's pretty fascinating. They grew AOV by 80% with orders that had Carro products in their cart, which is huge. I mean, that's, a significant bump. I think any brand would take that, even if they're giving, a revenue split on that. But then also, like, they're creating that recurring revenue through subscription. So I've now got, 310 Nutrition on subscription. I bought it on the BlendJet site. Bunjet's getting recurring revenue from that, and they don't even sell, like, I mean, they just sell hero products. So that's pretty amazing to see. And then on the LTV side, I think we looked at the numbers last. It was about 71% increase in LTV through customers that went through Carro specific orders. So again, you're creating more reasons for you to go back to Bunjet. You're not just buying the bundle there, you're getting all the things that go into it, which is pretty fascinating to see. So, I think like across the board, we see brands who are retailing really hit on both of those, is that AOV growth and that LTV growth, which, it's foundational, I think, to making customers, more profitable from an acquisition standpoint too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One thing you mentioned too was like, it's not necessarily a replacement for your own products, but it does have all these other sort of benefits, right? I'm curious, have you seen brands like use the marketplace to test, products that they're thinking about creating themselves? And I don't know if
Totally.
you can talk about that at all, but
Yeah. That's a great question. We work with a lot of brands who do that. So there's two that come to mind. So Schoolyard Snacks is a really cool one. They are a keto snack brand, and they created like this keto snack marketplace. So they have like their hero kind of products, but for them, it's like a lot to go into R&D and figure out how to make it, keto friendly, figure out, does it taste good, all the things. So being able to find other keto brands that they can just plug in and go, okay, like, hey, does, keto chocolate work well? Okay, cool. We're getting a lot of redemption. Like maybe we should go actually create that product and have it on our own. But rather than go spend, a lot of money and time, let's test the waters. Let's see if it works. Trupo Treats is another one we work with. They're a vegan marketplace, and they've done the same thing. So like they sell vegan chocolate, but chocolate isn't always purchased like year round. And so like rather than you have to go figure out how to build like 365 kind of calendar of vegan treats, like let's just go get a lot of brands that are doing things that we could maybe do ourselves, but being able to kind of test the waters on that. So it's literally, I say it's a zero risk way to figure out where your customers buy things. Even like if you're doing like a survey tool like No Commerce, for example, at post purchase, and you're asking your customers like, what else would you like to see in the store? And then taking that and then maybe trying it with Carro first, or whatever, even if it's not with us, testing that out is never a bad way to approach it. And like if you work with the complementary brands that fit your brand profile, I think that's a really great way to keep it on brand and make sure it really kind of is adding to the customer experience at the end of the day.
super, super interesting. That's awesome. Okay. And then last question on Carro specifically before we move on to some retention questions. Oh man, I just lost it. Platform wise. So I feel like it's rare these days that, Shopify apps are cross-platform. I think like everybody wants to get there eventually, but there's so much to chew on in the Shopify ecosystem alone that a lot of times it doesn't make sense until you've sort of won this market. I'm curious. So if I'm on Salesforce Commerce Cloud, I could add products from a Shopify store and vice versa, or only like if I'm on Shopify, I can add products from other platforms. Like, how does
Yeah.
that work?
Great question. Yeah. So Carro started as a Shopify app. So we, built for Shopify. We're in the App Store, all that stuff. But with a lot of advancements that we made over the last couple of months, like we have gone agnostic from the retailer perspective. So for our retailers, you can be on any platform and retail products, but only from Shopify brands at the moment. We are working, I think, at a later date for suppliers to be able to work across all platforms, but it's really that bridge, if you will, between Shopify and the rest of e-commerce. Like you've got this amazing kind of catalog, and even outside of that, we're working on some things here. Like we just passed 1 million products in the catalog, and so like like we're also talking about some things here that aren't even Shopify brands that you'll still get access to, like your Nikes, your Adidas, your Versace's. So like this really cool brands that, again, not going to fit every kind of profile of like what you're trying to sell, but there are really opportunities for retailers across any e-commerce platform to test the waters on something like this.
Amazing. Okay, so podcast is called Retention Chronicles. We got to ask about retention. The overview question is, how do you think about retention? What does it mean to you? And then you mentioned LTV earlier. That obviously is a big sort of retention metric, but how does Carro specifically help drive retention for brands?
Totally. Yeah. I think, for us, I mentioned, like what BlendJet's been doing, and this isn't just like unique to BlendJet with the LTV side. We have a lot of customers who are, growing LTV through being able to sell additional products in their store. But I think it's like one of the ways in which you can keep the store fresh and keep customers coming back. So you think about your email campaigns that go out and being able to test the waters on a new brand partnership. So say you are a t-shirt company who wants to suddenly test the waters on shoes, and you want to partner with a really great shoe brand and create some sort of a complimentary offer. Like, that's a great way to engage customers and keep them coming back. So we see a lot of traction with stuff like that across brands, that examples I've mentioned, some of that other stuff there. So that's definitely a big piece of it. But I think too, like, this idea of like the marketplace is becoming really, really cool with Carro. Like, some of the examples that I have mentioned, like, you're creating a marketplace that has everything a customer could like need from your brand. So if you are, that clothing company who wants to sell other apparel items, like, you can create a place where you can curate the whole look, and suddenly like you're able to sell all these different products to that customer at different times or in that one sale. But not having to worry about like, I got to go find like a shoe manufacturer, and then I got to go find someone to make the hats and do all that stuff. So again, like, great ways to think about just engaging, testing if there's product market fit, all that stuff. And then on the supplier side, I think it's really interesting because for suppliers working with these retailers, they're able to get in front of, I think, like, what would be very expensive traffic to get on Facebook, Meta, or whatever platform you're advertising on. Like, rather than be sandwiched between photos of dogs and other things on the feed, like, why not just co-market with other brands who share that same lookalike audience? Like, for 310 Nutrition, like, they're going to want to be selling to BlendJet customers because they've got their wallet out. They're ready to purchase like this BlendJet. Like, that's a great upsell to be able to add. So from like a retention standpoint, you're acquiring, I think, customers who are more of a true user of your product, but you're getting in front of them, I think, in a much more cost-effective way than paying on the paid ad side. So I'm not saying like just don't do ads anymore, but I think it's a great strategy to test out to acquire more customers that way too.
I love that example. It's one we haven't heard, which is like thinking about or being more strategic, or yeah, maybe that's probably not the best word, but being more strategic about who you acquire is a great way to think about retention, because just like in B2B SaaS, we think a lot about ICP, and we know there's a
Sure.
certain type of merchant that just like isn't a great fit for the long term for Malomo. Like, these are high churn volume merchants. I think Shopify merchants and e-commerce merchants can think very similarly about the customers that they acquire. And that, to your point, Blake, is a huge impact on retention, because if you're acquiring the wrong customers, they're not going to stick around long. And now, given that days of first purchase profitability are long gone, if you acquire the wrong customer, you're probably just straight up losing money on
Totally.
that cohort. So
Yeah.
I love that example.
Totally. And I think like it's a great parallel to draw to SaaS, thinking about the customer that you want to get in front of is like really important when you think about the end retention and that long tail, kind of like, they get it, they understand the value. Like, yes, you're going to need to educate your customers consistently across, even after they buy, like, it doesn't stop at purchase. But I think it's really critical to try to get in front of the best customers that you can. They're the lowest hanging fruit, but they're also the ones who typically, like, I think are going to be advocates for the brand if they like the product, and all the other things that kind of fall around that too. So yeah, I could write a thesis on this, but I think at the high level, that's definitely some of my thoughts there.
That's awesome. Okay, rapid fire. We've got a couple minutes left. Black Friday, Cyber Monday's right around the corner. What are 2 or 3 of the most important things that brands should think about with the Super Bowl of shopping just a couple months away now?
Yeah, I was just on a panel with Loop and ASRV and 1R, and we were talking about this. Couple things. Your transactional channel, like, if you're not set up, like, do it. Malomo makes it super easy, so you should be definitely doing that. I think like the stats speak to themselves around all the things there from an engagement standpoint, but also for like your CX team sanity. This BFCM in Q4, like, set it up, make sure it's optimized. I also think a second one, I would say, on SMS marketing, campaigns are very expensive. So I would actually really encourage people to think about their automations more this kind of time of year. Like you look at the ROI and SMS campaigns, and they can be really hard to hit if you're blasting to the whole list and that list isn't qualified, or there's other considerations there. So like even adding emojis or GIFs or all the things that SMS vendors will tell you to do, which, kudos to them for upselling you on that, but like also can be very expensive. So keep it simple. Think about your automations. Like you're going to get way more ROI on automations than you will campaigns, but campaigns can be effective. So I think, I'm not saying one or the other, but just really have an emphasis there. And then I think the last thing, don't risk it all, is something I always tell people. Like, don't send like 50 campaigns because you're going to drive money. Like, yes, it can work, and a lot of people do, but then you're really sacrificing every unsubscribe that you have on your retention list this Q4 will be lost revenue next year. So I think like you think about it, yes, it's inevitable. You're going to have unsubscribes. Like I'm not saying like that's some fairy tale world in which I think you can live in, but like you really want to think about just like everything you send out is going to have some of that lost revenue. Like Postscript talks a lot about this with customer lifetime value on their SMS subscribers. And so understanding that can really be a big kind of like good gut check to think about, should I send this campaign, or is this not really like, I don't need to tell the customer for the 15th time about the sale that we're having just to try to get a little bit more money out of them. So 3 cliche things, but I think 3 very, very important things.
I don't think so at all. I think that they're super tactical. And I agree wholeheartedly with all of them, especially the first.
I wonder why.
Oh man. Okay. So last question. I would ask a bunch of questions about what you just said, and we could go on for hours about that, but I do really truly agree with you on all 3 of those. Bringing it back to the personal side, you've dropped a couple nuggets throughout, but what's one tip or trick or resource that's sort of helped guide you throughout your super impressive career? And it's really just getting started. So, it's super impressive, man.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot. I think Mariah and I talked about this actually when I was on pod a while ago.
Way back when, season 1.
Season 1, yeah. Wow, throwback.
This is the second time? I didn't even know.
You didn't know? Oh my God, no. Blake and I go way, way past.
I think Blake is only the second timer.
Wow.
I think it's been Brandon. Oh, one brand, maybe. Brandon, Blake. Was there a brand that's been on twice?
I don't think so. Maybe a webinar and a podcast, but I don't think a brand.
Okay.
I'll check.
Good company.
But 4 seasons later, yeah, still going.
Yeah. My tip would be to anybody to invest in telling your story on LinkedIn and being a thought leader if you have the appetite to do it. I think anyone can do it and have something interesting to say. But I think LinkedIn's changed my life in like every single way imaginable, which is kind of bananas to think about. Like a couple of years ago, I was, literally sitting in an office doing SEO for a painting company. And here I am now. So I just think like so much opportunity, never a better time to get started than today. I literally tell every person I'm mentoring at San Diego State, like, do it now. And you'll never regret the decision to do that. So yeah, LinkedIn changed my life. I think it can change a lot of people's lives for sure.
I love that. We get a lot of really good advice. Most is like higher level. You just gave like a very tactical thing. Also, I would love to know if you have any resources. I'll hit you up personally for like that helped guide your LinkedIn strategy. I totally agree. Like when I'm posting every day or every other day, it has crazy effects that like honestly can't even be described probably.
Totally.
At least not in the next 20 seconds. And when I'm not right now, because I have so much other stuff going on, I feel like I'm just missing out. Like it just feels like make time for this because clearly you know how important it is. So would love if you have any resources like on strategy that's helped you. But great tip. Great tip.
Totally. I'll just say something really quick. The thing that's helped me the most is just to write as much as you can. So I have a Monday folder. I just write every time I have an idea and I throw it in there. And most are terrible, but some are good. And I think it's just like any kind of like creative outlet. You get better as you keep doing it. So I look up a lot to people like, you know, like Dave Gerhardt. I've done this for a while. But I think, yeah, just showing up is like the hardest thing to do, but also like the most important thing.
Yes. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Flew by. I honestly feel like this was the fastest pod we've ever done.
Yeah. I know. I was looking at the time. I was like, oh.
That's it.
Yeah.
Blake, thank you so much, man. And it'd be remiss not to mention too that Yao's going to be on your podcast, the 2% podcast, which is also very, very great. Pretty soon here as well. It might go out before this one. I'm not sure.
It is. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got those dates locked and loaded.
But definitely another pod that all of our listeners should check out because it will definitely be relevant to them. But Blake, appreciate you making the time in. We know how busy you are. Mariah, thanks so much as well. And we'll see you both very soon.
Awesome. I appreciate you both. This is an amazing podcast, amazing questions. Yeah, just can't say enough good things. So I had a great time. This hour flew by, but thank you both. And I'm so excited to also air the episode that we just did with Yao. So much good stuff there too that we dived into about Malomo. So I'm excited to share that with everyone too.
Yes.
We'll just have to have you back for a third time, Blake.
I'll get the number one spot then. That's
amazing.
Above Brandon.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, thank you.
Love it.
So awesome.
Love it. Thanks, Blake. Thanks
everyone.
Bye-bye.